Splatoon Raiders has been out for a good while now, and I've played it a lot. I thought about making a video during the first week the game was out, but I really wanted to make sure I experienced everything this game had to offer before forming an opinion. And with me nearly 100%ing the game now, I think this is a good time. What do I really think about this game? Was all the hype justified? Or are there some issues that lots of people overlooked? Well, not to spoil the rest of the video, but I think the answer is both. Speaking of spoilers though, this video is going to have a lot of them. I'm going to be talking about pretty much everything, including the final boss and post-game content. So if you're still not at that point in the game yet, you've been warned. Also, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to like and consider subscribing for more Splatoon related content. So it's no secret that Splatoon Raiders has been a very widely enjoyed game, both among already existing Splatoon fans as well as brand new players. Everyone is saying this game is incredible, and they would be right. Splatoon Raiders delivered. I gotta be honest, the game really surpassed my expectations. As someone who wasn't a huge fan of any of the 3 previous single player Splatoon campaigns, nor a big fan of Salmon Run or even Side Order, I wasn't expecting a lot from this game, because that's what I figured Splatoon Raiders would be, a culmination of all of those things. At least that was the impression I got from the game's marketing. And while it kind of is that, they handled it in a way where I found it to be really enjoyable. Sure, at the end of the day, it does boil down to just shooting the Salmonids. I mean, it is Splatoon after all, but there's a good amount of different level types, different objectives, and the addition of brand new Salmonids to really keep things interesting. Playing this game really made me realize that I think my main issue with Salmon Run was literally just depositing the eggs. I do know that coordinating the eggs added another level of strategy to the mode, which is what some people really liked about it, but personally, I just didn't. It felt like an unnecessary extra step. But in Splatoon Raiders, they got rid of that extra step. Obviously, not every single level is just solely splatting Salmonids, but in the den levels where that is what you're doing, you're just collecting the power eggs that get dropped on the ground by running into them. It feels so much more streamlined. I also want to take the time to talk about the new boss Salmonid types introduced in this game, because my goodness, the devs cooked with these. Salty tongues, salivators, and smokers, while being really annoying, are great additions to the roster. But I think where the game really shines is the inclusion of the seasoned Salmonids. In other words, beefed up versions of the already existing boss Salmonids. Not only did I love all their designs, but some of these guys were genuinely difficult in their respective dens. I remember struggling with the refill steelhead especially. I was playing the game on the survivalist difficulty, so I'm sure that played a part, but I thought all the seasoned Salmonids offered a really fun challenge. Oh, and also, I want to give a special shout out to Strong Arms. This thing's design is crazy. I was so stunned when I saw it for the first time on that ice level. And as I'm sure all of you know by now, this guy is an absolute menace. One complaint that I was seeing a lot when the game launched was that some people were upset that the old methods of killing certain boss Salmonids were altered, since obviously sub-weapons don't exist in Splatoon Raiders. So the bosses like Maws and Flyfish wouldn't be able to be killed in the same way as Salmon Run. Instead, Nintendo just made it so that you can shoot them. Even other bosses like Drizzlers and Steelheads can just be DPS'd by shooting anywhere on their body, though they will be taking far less damage compared to shooting their weak points. Some people were upset at this because it took away the unique features of these boss Salmonids. Personally, I do not care about these changes, like at all. In fact, I prefer them because it makes dealing with stuff like Flyfish way less annoying than before. The last thing I should address regarding the enemies are the Mythic Salmonids, aka the major bosses of the story. And I gotta be honest, I didn't care for these guys as much. While all of their designs were great, the actual process of fighting them was where I had some issues. In fact, the very first one, Flapatizer, was by far my least favorite. The fight wasn't hard, I beat it first try, but it just took forever. This fight literally took like 20 minutes. I've heard this take from a lot of other players too, and I think the issue is just that at the point in the story where most players reach this fight, it's very common to be a bit underleveled, making your weapon do less damage. Again, I did play the game on Survivalist, so that increased its health a bit, but I've heard that even on normal difficulty, this thing takes forever to die. But regardless, I do think this boss specifically could have had a bit less health, especially given how early you have to fight it. The other Mythic Salmonids, Pain Course and Desert, were better. Pain Course was definitely my favorite of the bunch. I don't really have anything bad to say about that one. I thought that was the most creative fight, and its design is so cool. Desert is just fine. I feel like at the point you reach this fight, a lot of players are over leveled, so a good amount of people just kind of breeze through it, myself included. The super spicy version of this fight definitely did give me some trouble though. Lastly, we of course have Salmon Arc, which is the final boss of the main story. For what it is, it's pretty good. The fight is very cinematic, dramatic, and spectacular. I especially loved the water section. I do think they could have done a bit better of a job making it clear where you're supposed to go during the main phase. Pretty much everyone I've seen do this fight fell off at least a couple times, including me. Now, you don't get punished for falling off in this fight, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but it still just feels kinda jank. But again, overall, I really did like this final boss fight. It was way better than any of the previous Splatoon final bosses, that's for sure. Oh, I guess I should mention Lord's Ultimatum since he's the secret final boss. Honestly, not a huge fan of this one. I liked it more than Flappetizer, but again, the same issue occurred where the fight wasn't hard at all, it just took forever. Floor 99 of the Bottomless Buffet was the true test in my opinion. Lord's Ultimatum was just an extremely long victory lap. Moving on from the Salmonids, I wanted to take the time to highlight just how good the gadget system in this game truly is. Not only is there a wide variety of different gadgets you can use for each tank, but the amount of customization for each individual gadget is crazy. There's like 10 to 15 different parts you can put on each gadget, fine-tuning it to fit your specific playstyle. And to add another layer to all of this, you can upgrade your gadget parts to be stronger and also take up less space. My only complaint with the gadget upgrades is that 1, they can be pretty pricey. 3 Spiralite gems for a singular 5-star upgrade is kinda nuts. And even when you do upgrade a part, the space doesn't go down by that much. It's usually just 1 or 2 points less than it was before. I wish that the upgrades would make the parts be a few points less, or let us upgrade the parts multiple times to keep making more space. I'm not saying they should let us infinitely upgrade the parts until they only cost 1 point. That would obviously be way too unbalanced, but maybe let us upgrade each part 2 to 3 times. Regarding the actual story, I thought it was good. This game made me like Deep Cut a lot more than I did before. Each one of them has their own charm and a ton of personality. Their dialogue is hilarious too. The story itself is pretty simple, but for the price point the game is at, I think it did a good enough job. I do know that you can get a lot more lore by reading through the scrolls you collect through Big Man, but I kinda wish more of this was incorporated into the actual story and cutscenes. I know that's how Splatoon has always been, but since this is a dedicated single player experience, I guess I just expected a little more. Again, not a huge deal. I still really liked the story, but that was just something that stuck out to me. So those are pretty much all my thoughts regarding the main story. When it comes to post-game content, I think Splatoon Raiders actually does a fine job. You have the spicy and super spicy versions of each level, as well as all the dungeons you unlock from the compasses. That's a good amount of replayability right there. But the dev team even went a step further and gave us an endless mode. The Bottomless Buffet is such a cool addition to this game, giving players something to infinitely keep grinding towards. And if you're good enough to get through the first 99 floors, a secret final boss awaits, being Lord's Ultimatum. Anyway, my point is, this game's replay value isn't bad. I personally did get bored around floor 200 of of the bottomless buffet, because after floor 100, the game just starts recycling random levels from the first 100 with scaled up enemies. To be clear, this is not me saying that I think them choosing to recycle levels was a bad decision. Obviously, I wouldn't expect them to design 1,000 unique levels. That would be insane. I understand why they made this decision. Just for me personally, I'm not really interested in pushing the bottomless buffet any further. So at the beginning of the video, I hinted that this game had a lot of good things, but it wasn't all positive. I've already voiced a few things throughout the video so far that I wasn't a huge fan of, but those were pretty minor. However, there is one issue with this game that I've yet to talk about, and for me personally, this is by far the worst aspect of Splatoon Raiders. In fact, this sole issue is the thing that made my rating of this game go from a 9.5 to an 8.5. And I don't think many of you will be surprised to hear me say this, since this is a very common complaint from what I've seen, but the issue I'm referring to is none other than the weapon drop system. Oh my gosh, where do I even start with this? Well, let me just set the scene for you guys. I played through the entire story using a few different weapons. I used a bit of splatter shots, splatanas, and dualies. Basically, whatever weapon drops I got that I liked, I used. No issues there. Around 3/4 of the way through the story, I got my hands on some normal 5-star titanium twin can dualies. I really liked how this weapon felt, so I decided to use this for the rest of my playthrough and beat the whole game with them. Again, no issues there. Now, it was only after I beat the story that I learned about primo weapons. I'm sure most of you know what primo weapons are, but just in case you don't, they're basically super rare versions of a weapon that doubles its special effect. So for example, the glass bottle splatter shot is specialized in having a faster fire rate. So if you had the primo version of this weapon, the faster fire rate would be enhanced even further. And there's no other drawback, by the way. The weapon isn't weaker in other areas. It is just undeniably a superior version of a weapon. So anyway, once I learned about primo weapons, I went to check if I had any already. I only had one 5-star primo, and it was a splatling, so that's not really something I was interested in using. Once again, I had no problem with this. I knew primo weapons were rare, so I didn't really expect to have one I wanted to use at this point. I was just like, okay, I'll grind through the post game with my regular titanium twin cans, and hopefully by the time I'm done, I'll have a 5-star primo that I'm interested in using. Again, I'm mainly interested in dualies, splatanas, and short-range shooters, so that gave me a good amount of options. So over the next few days, I played through the post game, beating all the spicy and super spicy levels. I even beat floor 100 of the bottomless buffet. And guess what? Still no 5-star primo weapon for any of the weapon classes I was interested in. At this point, I was like, okay, that's pretty unlucky, but that's fine. Surely I'll get one soon. At this point, I didn't really want to continue with the bottomless buffet since my normal titanium twin cans were starting to feel outmatched in the deeper floors. I did have them leveled up a bit, but not fully, because I didn't want to invest more resources and materials into upgrading this weapon since I knew I'd stop using it as soon as I found a primo weapon that I liked, and I wanted to save my resources for that. What I started doing from this point onward was grinding the levels that are known to give the best drops. I mainly grinded Bagel Beach, but I did grind a good amount of floors 97 to 99 as well. So with me grinding these levels, it surely didn't take too long for me to find one of my desired primo weapons, right? Guys, it took me 35 hours of grinding these levels to finally get a 5-star primo from one of my desired classes. I'm not kidding. It actually took me that long. Around 20 hours in, I was obviously starting to get bored, so I went back to playing some of the deeper bottomless buffet floors. While I was able to get a bit farther, I eventually had to stop because my weapon just wasn't strong enough. And yes, I know I could have just leveled up my gun more to get a bit farther, but again, I didn't want to invest a ton of spiralite shards and gems into this non-primo gun. because I knew I would instantly drop it as soon as I did find a primo. That would be such a waste of gems. Plus, the weapon drops in the deeper bottomless buffet floors were noticeably worse than when I was grinding floors 97 to 99 and Bagel Beach, so I just went back to those. I was genuinely starting to get discouraged and was considering just not playing the game anymore, but the RNG gods finally blessed me 35 hours in, and I got the primo sport bottle dualies. Another 10 hours later, I finally got a pair of primo titanium twin cans. Sorry, I know that was really long, but I wanted to take you guys along for the full ride so you know exactly what I went through. This RNG weapon drop system is so bad, and to make things worse, you basically have no control over it. Apparently, the weapon you're using can slightly influence the game to drop more of the same weapon class, according to some people online, but it's nowhere near enough. I mean, I literally used the titanium twin cans for pretty much all of the time that I was grinding those levels, and it still took me 35 hours to find a single primo dually. Also, even if it is true that your weapon can influence what weapon drops you get, I don't think the game tells you that anywhere, so how are people even supposed to know that? Now look, I know what some of you might be thinking here. Why didn't you just use a different weapon until you found one that you like? Isn't the point of the RNG system to encourage people to use different weapons? Look, I can understand this perspective for the main story, which again, I had zero issues with. I think you should use a variety of weapons in the main story. I think it improves the experience. But for the post game, I really do think there should be some kind of system in place to allow you to heavily influence or craft 5-star primo weapons. Because if you ask me, once you beat the game, you should be allowed to use whatever weapon you want. In fact, it's kind of crazy that there isn't some way to make your own primo weapons. It would have made so much sense to unlock a new area on your hideout ship after beating the main story, which would allow you to convert a normal 5-star weapon into a primo. It would probably be super expensive in terms of materials, but that's fine. I don't care if it costs 500,000 shards and 10 gems or something. I just want the option to be there so people aren't forced to grind hours upon hours and just pray the game drops what weapon they want. By the way, I know I'm complaining about this a lot, but it's not just me who feels this way. I've seen people complaining about the weapon drop system pretty much everywhere. Very few people seem to like this. In fact, I have friends who have told me that they lost interest in the game because, just like me, they didn't want to invest a ton of resources into a weapon that they didn't actually want to permanently use. But the game wouldn't give them the primo weapons they were looking for after hours of grinding, so eventually, they just gave up and stopped playing. This weapon drop system in its current form is genuinely discouraging some people from playing the game. And if my primo weapon grind was just a few hours longer, I probably would have been in the same boat. So I know that was a very long rant about the weapon drop system, but don't get the wrong idea. I like Splatoon Raiders. As I mentioned a bit ago, I would rate the game at a solid 8.5 out of 10. I think the story, the characters, the enemies, the world, and the customization are all extremely strong, and I genuinely did have a ton of fun playing through the main story. Even the post-game content, such as the bottomless buffet, were all really well made in my opinion, but the weapon drop system really did put a sour note on my view of this game. That's why I titled the video the way I did, because that really is how I feel. Splatoon Raiders was almost perfect, but obviously, this is just one man's opinion. As always, I want to know what you guys thought of Splatoon Raiders. Did you like the game overall? Did you have the same qualms about the weapon drop system? Or did you not mind it as much? I don't see my opinion on that changing anytime soon, but I am still curious to hear other perspectives. Thank you guys so much for watching my first Splatoon Raiders video. If you enjoyed, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more Splatoon related content, both normal and Raiders. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.